Welcome back to my space. And if you are visiting this channel for the first time, you are also highly welcome. In this lecture, we will be looking at the differences between the greater and the lesser vestibular glands. These two glands are seen in female and they are located around the vestibule. In this class, we'll be highlighting the differences between these two glands in a tabular form. Before we dive into establishing the differences between the lesser and the greater vestibular glands, it's important that we describe similarities that exist between them. First, the lesser vestibular glands can also be referred to as the Skene's gland, while the greater vestibular gland can be referred to as the Bertolin's gland. These two glands are seen in female and they are located within the superficial perineal pouch. We go back to our lecture on the superficial perineal pouch. We described in that lecture in details where this pouch is located. We try to use this image by the side. This region that is exposed in this image is the superficial perineal pouch. We said that the perineum is further subdivided into two triangular spaces. In the anterior region, we have the anteriorly placed urogenital triangle, and this is what is captured here in dotted yellow. Right posteriorly behind, we have the posteriorly placed anal triangle. And this is what is captured here in dotted blue. So these two triangular spaces are seen within the perineum. It is within the anteriorly placed urogenital triangle that we have the formation of the deep and the superficial perineal pouches. These pouches are created based on their relation with the perineal membrane. If you look at this structure that is harrowed here in green on both sides, this is the perineal membrane, and it is this perineal membrane that creates the basis onto which the anteriorly placed urogenital triangle further subdivided into the deep and the superficial perineal pouches. So deep to this perineal membrane on the inside is where we have the deep perineal pouch, while superficial to this perineal membrane is where we have the superficial perineal pouch, just as the name implies. So the superficial perineal pouch is located superficially to the perineal membrane, which means that it is this region that is exposed here in this image that is the superficial perineal pouch. And it is within the superficial perineal pouch that we have the lesser and the greater vestibular glands. So these are the similarities that exist between these two glands. Now let's dive into establishing the differences that they present. For the lesser vestibular gland, it is seen to be located on both sides of the urethral opening. If we try to use this image here, this is where we have the lesser vestibular glands here, harrowed in red. We have two of these glands, one on the right and the other on the left. And you see that they are located on both sides of the opening of the urethra. This is where we have the opening of the urethra here, harrowed in white. This is where the urethra opens into. And on both lateral sides of the opening of the urethra is where we have the lesser vestibular glands. While the greater vestibular glands are located on both lateral wall of the vaginal opening. If you go to this region behind here, is where we have the greater vestibular glands here, harrowed in black. We also have one on the right, and we have the other one on the left. And you see that they are located on both lateral walls of the opening of the vaginal canal. So this is where we have the opening of the vagina here, harrowed at the central point. So you see that both the lesser and the greater vestibular glands are located on the lateral walls of the opening of the urethra and also the opening of the vaginal canal, respectively. Another difference is that they present is that the lesser vestibular gland is located anteriorly, while the greater vestibular gland is located posteriorly. We also drive in through this image. This is the anterior position, and this is the posterior position. And you see that the lesser vestibular gland is located anteriorly, while the greater vestibular gland is located posteriorly. And you can see that the position of the lesser vestibular gland is closely related to the opening of the urethra, which is located in the anterior part, while the greater vestibular gland is closely related to the opening of the vaginal canal, which is located at the posterior region. Also, in terms of their size, you see that the lesser vestibular gland is smaller, and this is why it is referred to as lesser vestibular gland. Lesser means smaller. And the greater vestibular gland that is located posteriorly appears to be bigger in terms of size. And this is why it is referred to as the greater vestibular gland. Greater means bigger. So in terms of size too, they are different. And another difference is that we have between these two glands is that the lesser vestibular gland is homologous to the prostate gland in male, The prostate gland in male is located at the inferior part of the urinary bladder. The same features that they present is also exhibited by the lesser vestibular gland. The greater vestibular gland is homologous to the bulbourethral gland that can also be referred to as the Cowper's gland in male, although they are located in different regions. The greater vestibular gland is located within the superficial perineal pouch, as we initially described, even though the bulbourethral gland or the Cowper's gland is homologous to this structure, it is located within the deep perineal pouch. So these are the differences that I tried to highlight in the tabular form. You can also add to these differences in the comment section, and I'll be looking forward to it. So thanks for watching this video. Bye.